The American railroad system is a continuous, unstoppable machine of commerce. Every single day, millions of tons of steel, hazardous chemicals, and vital goods tear across the landscape on tracks that have been there for over a century. It is a brutal, unforgiving environment built on the laws of extreme physics. When a 15,000-ton train is rolling down a mountain grade, it cannot stop, it cannot swerve, and it will crush anything in its path. But who actually keeps this mechanical leviathan moving? This isn't a romantic ride on the Orient Express. The modern freight railroad is a high-stakes, incredibly dangerous environment where one minor miscalculation can lead to a catastrophic derailment or the loss of a limb. It is an industry built on strict hierarchy and intense discipline. Today, we are breaking down every single level of a railroad worker's career, from the grueling manual labor of the track workers all the way up to the immense psychological pressure resting on the shoulders of the locomotive engineers. When you first enter the railroad, you don't get anywhere near the controls of a locomotive. If you start on the infrastructure side, you begin at the absolute bottom of the food chain, the maintenance of way worker, historically known as a trackman or gandy dancer. Your job is pure, unadulterated physical labor. You are responsible for replacing rotten wooden ties, driving massive steel spikes, shoveling heavy crushed rock called ballast, and repairing steel rails that expand and warp in the brutal summer heat. The environment is miserable. You are working outside in every conceivable weather condition, from sub-zero blizzards to triple-digit heat waves, but the weather is the least of your concerns. The real danger is the fact that you are performing this heavy labor on active, live railroad tracks. Modern freight trains are surprisingly quiet when they are coasting downhill, and a train can cover the distance of a football field in seconds. Track workers have to maintain constant, absolute situational awareness. If the watchman blows the horn, you have seconds to drop your heavy tools and clear the right-of-way. It is grueling work that destroys your back and your knees, but without these workers, the entire supply chain of the country would grind to a dead halt. Before we move up the ranks, let me ask you a question. Could you handle swinging an incredibly heavy sledgehammer driving spikes into wooden ties for 12 straight hours in the freezing rain? Drop a comment below and let me know if you think you have the physical endurance for the maintenance of way. If you decide to go into the transportation side of the railroad instead of maintenance, your entry level is completely different, but just as dangerous. You start as a switchman or yard brakeman. The classification yard is the beating heart of the railroad. It is a massive labyrinth of tracks where incoming trains are disassembled and sorted into new trains based on their final destinations. As a switchman, you are the one doing the sorting. You are constantly jumping on and off moving freight cars, throwing heavy steel track switches by hand, and connecting the massive steel couplers that hold the cars together. This is arguably the most statistically dangerous job on the railroad. You are working in an environment filled with massive pinch points. A fully loaded freight car weighs roughly 286,000 pounds. When two cars come together to couple, the sheer kinetic energy is terrifying. If you leave your hand resting on the coupler for even a fraction of a second too long, the slack action will snap your arm like a dry twig. Switchmen have lost fingers, hands, and legs because they lost focus for a single moment in the yard. You have to learn the brutal, mechanical rhythm of the cars, and you have to do it at 3 a.m. when you are exhausted and it is pouring rain. If you respect the incredible grit and constant danger that these yard workers face every single night to keep our economy moving, hit that like button right now, because the stakes at this level are truly life or death. If you survive the yard, learn the rules, and prove you have a mind for logistics, you eventually mark up to the main line and become a conductor. Most people think the engineer is the boss of the train, but legally and functionally, the conductor is actually the captain of the ship. When you are a conductor, you are responsible for the entire train, which can often be over 2 miles long and carry millions of dollars worth of hazardous materials. You manage the massive stack of paperwork, known as the train consist, tracking exactly where every single car is located and what dangerous chemicals it might be carrying. But the job isn't just sitting in the cab doing paperwork. When a modern 2-mile-long freight train experiences a mechanical failure, it is the conductor's job to fix it. If the air brakes lose pressure in the middle of a blizzard at 2 a.m., the train automatically goes into an emergency stop. As the conductor, you have to grab your lantern, climb down into the waist-deep snow, and walk the length of the train to find the problem. If a massive steel knuckle has snapped due to the extreme tension, you have to physically carry an 80-pound replacement knuckle on your shoulder for over a mile in the dark to swap it out. You are the ultimate problem solver. It requires immense physical stamina, a deep mechanical understanding of air brake systems, and the mental fortitude to work alone in the middle of absolute nowhere. As we look at these different roles, which part of the job sounds the most intense to you? The constant physical danger of the yard switchman, or the heavy logistical responsibility of the conductor? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you spend enough years as a conductor, mastering the physical layout of the territory and demonstrating an absolute understanding of train dynamics, you are finally given the opportunity to sit in the right-hand seat. You reach the absolute pinnacle of the railroad career, the locomotive engineer. The engineer is the one who actually controls the massive diesel-electric locomotives pulling the train. They are in command of thousands of horsepower and responsible for manipulating the terrifying laws of extreme physics. A loaded freight train does not drive like a truck. If a train is stretching over a massive mountain pass, the front half of the train might be going downhill while the back half is still coming uphill. The engineer has to perfectly balance the independent locomotive brakes, the dynamic braking system, and the train's air brakes to keep the train stretched out or bunched up. If they apply the brakes too hard, the massive weight from the back of the train will slam into the front and literally push the train right off the tracks. If they don't apply enough brakes on a steep downgrade, the train becomes a runaway missile. It requires a profound, instinctual understanding of physics and train handling that takes years to truly master. But the hardest part of being an engineer isn't the train handling, it is the immense psychological toll. Engineers sit at the very front of the train, and they are the first to arrive at every railroad crossing. When a distracted driver tries to beat the crossing gates, or a pedestrian is walking on the tracks, the engineer is completely helpless. A freight train physically cannot stop in time. The engineer has to pull the horn, throw the train into emergency, and brace for an impact they cannot avoid. The sheer mental trauma of operating massive machinery with zero ability to swerve or quickly stop is a heavy burden that these professionals carry for their entire careers. If you have enjoyed this deep dive into the brutal, structured, and fascinating world of the railroad industry, and you want to see more breakdowns of extreme careers and how massive industries actually work, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We are building a community that truly appreciates the hard work and blue-collar expertise that builds our world, and I'd love to have you on board. From the miserable, back-breaking labor of the maintenance crews driving steel spikes in the freezing rain, to the terrifying pinch points navigated by the yard switchman, all the way up to the elite physics mastery and psychological endurance of the locomotive engineers, a railroad worker's career is a masterclass in survival, mechanics, and raw grit. It's an industry that operates 24/7, 365 days a year, moving the very lifeblood of our economy across an unforgiving landscape. Every single level builds on the intense lessons of the last, forging individuals who can conquer one of the most dangerous industrial environments on the planet.